Now we've covered a lot of things, and I kind of want to go on to another area, which I'm going to really talk about, is the big picture. And this is kind of newer kind of statements of the whole picture. The big picture. What's the big picture? And I want to acknowledge Daniel Vitalis here for being right on and being so forthright, because I wouldn't have figured it out if I didn't really hear his position. So I honestly, I mean, I haven't met the person, but I want to acknowledge this guy's like, you know, he is clear where he's standing. I'm going to help make it clearer. Okay? So what he says, and I'm pretty much I'm going to quote from it. So this is a quote. Most of my work is based on my interpretation of history. So he's a Darwinist. Okay? We're going to look at where that takes us. But that's his position. And I want to be clear, Darwinism takes you a very interesting position. It's an amoral, non-ethical statement, survival of the fittest. And Darwinism eliminates God from the picture. Let's be very clear what we're talking about. And he's basically saying, it's the same position Hitler took, and I'm not saying that Daniel Vitalis is Hitler. Don't misunderstand, but it's the same philosophy. It's called survival of the fittest. It's an intellectual thing. It's not a moral or ethical thing. He's completely right. How well does that hold? But let's go there. He also says, humans are animals. I believe in animal welfare, and I'm an animal. Therefore, I believe in my welfare. Clever. I love it. I think it's great. I really enjoyed listening to him. He's got a lot of charisma. It's really fun. And that is a worldview. And a God-centric view will, of course, be completely opposite. We're spiritual beings. So that's kind of where he's coming from. And the question is, one other thing, which I think is the crux of the whole thing. He's saying, what's more natural? Well, I don't know what's more natural, but it's the wrong question. The real question for a diet is, what is more appropriate for this time in history for the survival of the human species? Very different question. And those two worlds take us into different places. So what I want to go with is that question. So let's look at Darwinism. How good is Darwinism? How accurate it is? So I'm going to look at 1968, major physicist at Yale, with his mathematic computations, his name is Markowitz, Harold Markowitz, says, and computes, in his book, The Flow of Energy in Biology, that it would be literally impossible in the 5.5 billion years that we're here to even have bacteria growing. By random things coming together, it couldn't happen, which is a part of the Darwinian theory. I think that's interesting, because you realize even 3.5 billion years ago we had fossils. So, wow. Think about that for a second. So, mathematically, Darwinism doesn't hold. You know, but more important, because it's a conceptual model, is in 1980, Niles Eldredge, world leader in paleontology research, at a major paleontology conference at the American University, in the National American Museum, said, this is really important to get, for the last 120 years we've been looking for the missing link, and we haven't found it. I no longer can consider that the Darwinian theory, as far as I'm concerned, has been disproven. But that's a pretty important statement. Now, we can play with those ideas in the bigger picture of it. The final part of his quote is that the pattern we're told to find for the last 20 years, I'm quoting it, does not exist. In other words, then he says, we have been looking for Darwin pattern of evolution, and it can't be found. Well, that's pretty serious. That's pretty serious. Well, we looked for 120 years, and that's not happening. Well, then we can talk about, what about Lucy? Anybody hear of Lucy? Okay. This is funny. I heard about Lucy, and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds immediately came to me. So I read the papers on this, you know, and that actually, believe it or not, that's what they played the whole night they found Lucy. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And it fits perfectly, because Lucy, at this point, was claimed, a vegetarian said, oh, Lucy's a vegetarian, therefore we're right. Meat eaters then, archaeologists said, no, she's a meat eater. But when we really look at the whole thing, Lucy was not the missing link. Lucy is 3.7 feet high. She didn't have hands, didn't have feet, and her whole upper structure was like a chimpanzee. And her knees were different, but there's one caveat to that. Her knee structure, which they claim was part of her, which I can't validate at all, was found 1.5 miles away and 200 feet deep in the layer. Can you get the humor in that? And now I understand why they played Lucy in the Skies with Diamonds. Because it's a hallucination. Are you telling me that you found a knee structure 1.5 miles away, buried 200 feet deep in a layer, a different layer, is her knees? I don't think so. So now the whole Lucy thing, whether you're a vegan, wants to prove your point, or you're a meat eater, wants to prove your point, and you can argue, is irrelevant. Lucy is most likely considered just, you know, like a chimpanzee in the animal species. How about the Neanderthal man? Well, again, we don't make a match there either, and that's a different species. How about the Nebraska man? Anybody ever heard of the Nebraska man? Well, they did a whole thing in Nebraska man. What did it turn out? They found one tooth. This is how weak the whole science is. Oh, one tooth. You know what else? They constructed a whole thing out of that one tooth, and then later they found it was a pig's tooth. You got to have a sense of humor of the nonsense that goes on in the paleontology and how absolutely inaccurate. So what I'm saying is, I ain't going to look to the past, and I don't think we have anything that really supports Darwinism. We have no missing link. All these things that people are arguing are vegan is irrelevant. That's where we got Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It's a hallucination if you think you got that. And some people who like hallucinations, good for them. But as far as I'm concerned, the theory of Darwinism has been disproved. It's one big, quote, theoretical hallucination. Now, I'm not saying Darwin was, you know, he did the best he could, okay? And I'm not really giving a creationist argument, but certainly where are we left with how do we get here? And from a Torah point of view, from the Genesis point of view, is something happened, and I look back and I've thought about this with my Torah experts, and they will actually say, you know, obviously it's a God-centered approach, right? So that the Homo erectus went through a major spiritual conversion, and the Torah points out, obviously, a divine intervention, was upgraded genetically and became this new person called the Adamic race. That's what we're saying. Now that's supported also by the Sumerian teachings as well, that there was some upgrade. Now, can we say it's God? I mean, my preference is, of course, to say that because I'm thinking a more God-centered world, but it brings God back into the center. I mean, you can have other explanations and they're out there, but we got to say evolution, Darwinian evolution doesn't exist. That's the main thing. And from my point of view, it brings God back into the center, and that brings moral ethics and spirituality back into the foundation. Whereas when you look at the Darwinian, survival of the fittest, no morals, no ethics, it's only me first. And I think when I look at Daniel Vitalis, and again, he's so honest about where he's at. I mean, I really respect that. he is basically talking about a nostalgic return to the past, when I'm going to say the past doesn't really exist. His past doesn't exist. He's talking about a healthy survivalism. He's talking, the conservatives look to the past. So, I don't want to call him a right-wing survivalist, but actually all elements fit with that. So let's look where that is, without morality and without ethics. And that's why I don't call them, because there are right-wing survivalists who have some moral, and spiritual issues. So I don't want to put them all in one lump.